It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? Okay, you're a chemist, you're a teacher, you're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a Tuesday. It is really one of the best days of the entire week. Welcome into it, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region. All across the 5 states, 6 states, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, welcome into a broadcasting out of Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome into it. It is the Voice of Reason, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in 8 minutes past the hour, what a heck of a show we got ready for you today. It's going to be a fun one as we have one of the state legislators, Leo Delperdang. He's going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour after the big discussions that happened at the end of last week when it comes to numerous different votes on your guns, when it comes to numerous different discussions on your tax rates. It's going to be kind of a hefty discussion, and it's going to be a little fun to chat with him today as it's starting to pick up. Now that we've gotten the state educational finance report that came out on $2 billion. Just think about that. $2 billion worth of additional funding that's going to need to come from the taxpayers, you and I, the constituents, the people working every day. That's going to have to come out of our pockets. And they're going to have to do that over the next 4 years. We'll look and see how we're actually going to do that. The question is, what taxes do you want to see happen to come out of your paycheck? Whether it's your paycheck, whether it's your sales, whether it's your property. We're going to have to figure that out. So we'll talk with him coming up in the 8 o'clock hour for that. Plus at 7:45. We'll have our Wichita City Council update. City Councilman Bryan Frye will be joining us. But this hour, it's open lines to you at 316-721-8255. We got the Facebook Live rocking and rolling. We have the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. You can email me, Andy, at KQAMradio.com. I have to start off and kind of laugh at the fact that, I don't know if you've been hearing the news yesterday, but the fact that Vladimir Putin out of Russia, he gets reelected with 72% of the vote. And I have not heard a single news outlet yet, well, except for the one that I'm going to read here, but a single news outlet on TV or on radio or anybody say, hey, hold on, wait a second. The Russians, they like to collude with Donald Trump. They like to influence certain elections. Do you think maybe the former KGB member like Vladimir Putin, do you think maybe that he rigged his own election? Now we've been looking at the election results here in the country, and of course the progressives are all about the collusion with the Russians, with Donald Trump in order to be able to get Donald Trump elected to try and beat Hillary Clinton, which is completely bogus, and the more they try to investigate this, the more it actually pops up that way. But maybe they have tried to influence their own election. I know it's a wild thought. What do you think? Do you think that the KGB member, the communists, actually colluded to try and rig his own election? I don't know. I don't know about that. He does have a history of that, by the way. Back in 2015, Boris Nemtsov, a longtime Putin critic of the most prominent opposition figure of Russia, advocated for the pro-market democratic reform and aspired to the presidency, was shot dead by a group of assassins because, hey, we can't have any type of opposition in that sense. So I find it ironic that the media, other than just reporting that Vladimir Putin won by 72% of the votes and everybody's all happy, all giddy, all excited about Vladimir Putin, some may be, but first off, do they have any actual kind of challenger that would actually be able to beat him? Probably not, or else he would be shot dead. Just imagine if you're running for politics in Russia and you came up and said, I am a pro-market, capitalist, free enterprise individual. We're going to get rid of communism. We're going to get rid of the thugs. We're going to get rid of the old KGB, and we're going to go to free marketism, baby. We're going to expand the economy. All of you that are living in poverty, waiting in line for your stale bread and your vodka, maybe, just maybe, you'll have an opportunity to work. You'll have an opportunity to start a business. You'll have an opportunity to do something very well. Yeah, you say that, you'll probably end up like Boris Nemtsov, because that's kind of just what they do. The electoral corruption is widespread. Now, this has been an issue that we've been addressing here in the United States. As you know, Secretary of State for the state of Kansas, Chris Kobach, has been trying to look at voter corruption, electoral corruption. We're trying to find illegal immigrants that have been voting. They have a little bit different problem. They like to vote like Democrats do. Let's see how many times we can vote in one sync time as opposed to just one person, one vote. They have a history of doing this. In a video, an election official prepares to count votes. A woman moves the balloon in front of the monitoring camera as they show the military uniforms at a voting station where they begin counting them numerous different times. Each ballot, counting them multiple times. There are multiple incidents, according to Newsweek.com, where election observers have allegedly been assaulted, according to the Associated Press. Aida Merskumshamuva, I think I pronounced that right. If not, then that was very entertaining to say, who is collecting violations, said burly men dressed in black dragged an observer for the Communist Party candidate Pavel Grudinin to the ground and shouted, "Help! Get out!" as they assaulted just because of the fact that they were counting votes. This has been going on for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. Now, are we nearly as corrupt as that? No. And the reason I hesitate is simply for the sole fact that when we have video documentation come out from Acorn, if you remember that back in 2008, where they said, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and register dead people. Let's register people numerous times. Let's register people under 18. Let's register everybody that we can possibly get registered. And then if they happen to vote, then oops, oh well. If you notice the Democratic Party, the number one thing that they do during election time is register, 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 register. You go to a college campus, you see different students all around. Would you like to register to vote? I'm already registered. Oh, I'm registered as a Republican. Ew. It's kind of how that works, isn't it? That's all they care about is the registering to vote. I actually got an email from the local Democrats around the state of Kansas as their big push right now from the help of outside forces is to get people registered to vote. Because if you can get registered, then they can help you. Oh, you know, well, you got to get registered. Just put a little D right there. It's going to be fine. Go ahead and check that box. It says Democrat. We'll make sure that you get to vote. We'll drive you to the precinct. We'll do whatever we can to make sure to get you to vote. And oh, by the way, because we're helping you out so much, you probably should do us a favor and just vote for the person that we're trying to make you vote for. If you know, historically, the Democratic Party, the African-American community, along with different minorities, were pushed to vote for a certain political party if they were taken care of. They'll give them housing, they'll give them food, they'll give them social programs, they'll give them this, they'll give them that, which is why they love the immigration debate right now. Because who cares if they actually assimilate into society? Who cares if they actually are contributing to society or if they're sitting on the public dime? Who cares? We'll take care of you as long as you continue to keep us in power. That has been the mindset of the progressives for a very, very long time, which is exactly the same thing in what's happening in Russia right now. Go ahead and vote for communist Vladimir Putin, the former KGB member, the one who's the tough talker, the one who's not going to take any. Now, I will give him credit. He will not take any crap from anybody else around the world. He's a very staunch nationalist that believes in his country, who does believe that his nation is the greatest nation on the face of the earth, and I give him credit for that because every leader needs to be that way. We finally have that back in the United States with Donald Trump. Before that, we had what? Barack Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry that we live in the United States. This is a nation that has been very corrupt, and it's been very bad, and we hate everybody about it, and it's time for hope and change. And we heard that apology tour for years. Now we have a president that says we are the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Don't mess with us. And it sounds kind of nice, right? But Vladimir Putin, I'd got to give him credit for whatever flaws that he does have. He is supportive of his own nation, just in a very wrong way. Putin controls the media and dominates the coverage. It is a state-run media. It's a communist nation. The media is there for the government and exploits just whatever the government tells them to report and how to report it and what to say about it. So good for him. He won at 72%. Do you think that it was actually a legit election? And do you think that that would make him slow down a little bit to not try and influence other elections around the world? Probably not. Our duty as Americans, our duty as the United States, is to make sure that this type of corruption does not happen within the United States, and it's been tried. When they say during this entire trial with the ACLU and the Secretary of State Chris Kobach about the voter fraud cases and about the voter ID laws and about everything that's going on right now, when they try to say that there's very, very little corruption happening and there's very, very little double voting and there's very little illegal immigrants voting and so on and so forth, it's lies. It's untrue. Because, number one, we haven't actually researched how many people have done this. That's why we tried to start the Election Integrity Commission with Vice President Mike Pence and Chris Kobach. We don't know how much fraud is actually happening, and we want to make sure that there is none, even if it's one vote in the 320-plus million people in the United States. One person tried to do it. That is one too many. But it's getting harder and harder to find because, number one, every time we try to study it, the left and the ACLU and the progressives panic and freak out and don't know how to respond other than try and shut it down. And now you're starting to see other states like Maryland, like California, like some of these other states that are now saying, not only are we going to not listen to voter ID laws, not only are we going to try and verify you when you register to vote, but we're now going to pass legislation to allow any immigrant with a green card who's not a naturalized citizen, anybody who's here, and maybe even people who are not supposed to be here to be allowed to vote in our elections. Why? Because they live on the land, therefore they should have a say, right? They should have a say. We are becoming more and more and more like a corrupt government, like the thugs that are from Vladimir Putin's administration, and it's being done by progressives and Democrats who want the same mentality, because if they never have to lose power, then they can do whatever they want to do. They're going to turn out to be just like him. Mark my words. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
4 minutes past the hour. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today. It's a Tuesday. It's a Patriotic Tuesday. Hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255. The only reason I bring up that story is because, number one, I find it quite ironic of Vladimir Putin's re-election with 72% of the votes and how no one questions it. Everyone, hey, president got re-elected, 72% of the vote. He must be a popular kind of guy over there. Man, he's rocking it. The progressive media doesn't say anything about the fact that, well, it's probably rigged in order for him to win, because they don't think that elections are ever rigged. They don't, except for when a Republican wins, of course, because then we're fascists. But they don't think that any elections are ever rigged because, you know, if people vote when they're not supposed to vote, if they vote numerous times, if they're registered when they're not supposed to be registered, you know, that doesn't matter. Anybody should be able to vote anytime they want to. Look, the progressives would love, and I say this sincerely, the progressives would love with all their heart to have the control over the nation the way that Vladimir Putin does over his nation. And I mean that sincerely, with the nice little communist government, with the mob-like mentality, with the control over the media, with control over freedom of speech, with control over your mindset, with taking away the guns to where you're not allowed to fight back. How dare you start a revolution? How dare you actually try and say, no, wait a second, we have constitutional rights. You're not allowed to do that. We want a socialized governmental system to where we control you, we take care of you, we give you your goodies. That's what progressivism is. Now, I'm not talking about a party. Don't call me up and say that I'm a registered Democrat and I don't believe that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that progressive ideologies, many within the Democrat Party believe that, but that's not the entire Democratic Party. It's the fringe that's beginning to grow, that's beginning to actually gain traction and gain popularity within politics, because they want everything to be fair. They want everything to be equal. If you want everything to be equal and fair, why don't you look at how the people live in Russia to where they're standing in line for stale bread and vodka? How does that work out for you? Do you feel very safe? Do you feel happy? Do you feel content with your life? As long as someone's holding your hand and telling you what to do for your life, that's how you feel. That's what we need to fight. And shows like this, it wouldn't be allowed to actually happen. Wouldn't actually be allowed to stand up and say, wait a second, I don't think this is right. Because I might end up like some of those candidates that were trying to go against Vladimir Putin. 316-721-8255. As we talk about the progressive ideology of, oh yeah, we love tolerance, we love open-mindedness, we love acceptance, we love this, we love that, except for when anybody disagrees with us. That's really what we've come to when it comes to the discussion of freedom of speech, isn't it? I mean, freedom of speech right now is we're allowed to have freedom of speech unless you disagree with me, and then you're not allowed to have that. Go to a college campus, a politically active college campus that is politically oriented on the left side of the aisle, which is most college campuses. Go to a college campus wearing a Donald Trump hat and see what kind of response you get. Get the little chalk and draw on the sidewalk. We used to do that all the time, by the way, with the college Republicans. We would promote events that we were having, our weekly or monthly meetings. If we had a big speaker coming in, we would go around and at the entrance of all the doors of the buildings, we would write on the sidewalk with chalk, hey, so-and-so's coming in this building, in this room at this time, come check it out. If you go and try and do that now, we saw many cases during the election time that people that actually said go Trump, that people would have a meltdown. Students would have to actually go to their safe space, that they would wash it off, that would actually get them in trouble because they're not allowed to have an opposition voice. Now, if you said that you were a liberal who was open-minded and you were tolerant and acceptant of individuals who maybe lived a different type of lifestyle, then you were very open-minded and you were accepted because everybody agreed with you. So as long as they agree with you, then you're all fine. But if they disagree with you, then it's a whole other situation. Then you're not actually promoting freedom of speech, you're actually promoting hate speech. Because in today's times, anything that offends you, that makes you feel uncomfortable, is no longer a freedom of speech, but is now hate speech. If you say, I love Donald Trump, that is now considered fascist hate speech because you are a Nazi, you're probably a white supremacist, and you don't have any place in society. That's what we've come to in society. It is that kind of mentality that makes me think, light bulb comes on. Guess what? The progressives, with their open-minded, tolerant views, I try and say it without smirking, the open-minded, tolerant views of the progressives are really the exact same mentality of the KGB members in Russia. The exact same. Now, when we come back, we got to take about the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, the state legislature in Kansas is actually trying to address this by allowing freedom of speech all over campus, by trying to ban certain free speech zones to where you only have to have it contained in certain areas, and then being able to make sure and defend and protect the right for different speakers of all different views to be able to go to a college campus and speak. Because as you know, we've seen the different cases of Ian Coulter or Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro or some of these other conservative speakers that have been going to campuses and they get rioted, they get booed, they get threatened, all the protests break out, and they end up not being able to make it because the students or the administration of the college campuses are not allowing them to actually go and make their voice heard, which is, again, going into that same line of, oh, look, KGB progressive members not wanting to have any type of opposition, because if you say something that's different, then you're just wrong, you're closed-minded, you're bigoted, you're a Nazi, and you're probably a white supremacist.
I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Patriotism is alive and well. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today. It is a Tuesday, hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Great to have you along today for the ride, broadcasting across the entire Mid-America region. Welcome aboard, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, defending the right to freedom of speech, defending your First Amendment and your Second Amendment, pretty much all of them, except for, of course, the bureaucratic state. Defending your rights with a conservative twist, because that is kind of constitutionalism at its finest, is it not? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in as we're having a debate. Now, look, when I was in college, and maybe you have a different experience or a similar experience, there was kind of the center of campus where most people kind of held their rallies, and you had to apply for it, or you had to submit to make sure that no one else was going to use that space at that time, and you could go there and you could do whatever really you wanted to, but you had to stay kind of confined in that area. And you could hold your rallies, you could hold signage, you could play music, you could do whatever you wanted to do. I remember, and we had some fun with it. Don't get me wrong. We had the Catch an Illegal Immigrant Day. Yeah, that one didn't go over very well with the Latino Student Union. I don't know why, because they're assuming that it was automatically going to be for Latinos, but we had our Catch an Illegal Immigrant Day that went off, I thought, relatively fun. We had our global warming beach party, and that one was fun, the middle of wintertime, trying to prove that global warming was actually happening when it was freezing in Ohio. We would go out there with the beach balls and in swimming trunks and play Jimmy Buffett and say, we had signs that said Bush lied, polar bears died. And just to show the hypocrisy of the lunacy of what they were trying to talk about at the time with climate change and global warming. So we had that. We had, actually, it was funny, we actually had a petition to keep Rush Limbaugh on the radio, because at the time, if you remember, there was a time where Congress was actually trying to sign a resolution to ban him from the radio. So we actually went out and we had petitions signed, and we were all smoking cigars, trying to create all these big poofs of smoke all up in the air. And it was a fun time. That's what we did in college, because that was our duty. We were the activists. And there is a time when college is supposed to be some kind of social experiment to some degree, especially if you're going to a liberal arts college where you go for political science or that sort of thing. But if you're going for engineering, if you're going for math or science, if you're going for some of these others, it's a business. You're going there to learn. You're going there to work. You're going there to do things that are actually productive that's going to get you moving along when it comes to your career. So there's different purposes of the college. But when it comes down to it, with you, let's say, having a right to even wear a T-shirt that says McCain Palin at the time, where I had actually duct taped out the John McCain part of it and just had Palin on. Or for the latest election, if you had a Donald Trump T-shirt on. If you have those on and they say, sorry, you're not allowed to wear the T-shirt because you're not in your free speech zone, because you're only really allowed to wear a Hillary Clinton or a Bernie Sanders shirt outside of the free speech zone, because we don't like your view anyways. If you have to, because you are protected to some degree, then you have to stay in that free speech zone. If you are trying to promote maybe the college Republicans on campus, and you're writing on the signage on the sidewalk with the chalk, and you're doing it around the building so that way as people and students are walking into school the next day, then they are able to know about it, and maybe that entices somebody to come to the meeting. That is now considered a violation of the free speech because you didn't do it within the free speech zone. So it's been very confined and contained to the likings of many progressives when it comes to free speech on college campuses. College campus is to some degree supposed to be a social experiment, but at the same time, we have the same rights as where we do anytime off campus. That is why that we need to defend more than anything else the right to be able to keep and carry a firearm on college campus in the state of Kansas. For you to carry that firearm on campus just because you all of a sudden walked across this arbitrary line that says, hey, welcome to university grounds. You need to be able to carry that. You need to be able to voice your opinion if you're standing in the lunch cafeteria area and you say, I'm kind of a fan of Donald Trump. I'm kind of a fan of Chris Kobach. I'm kind of a fan of maybe, I don't know, whoever. I'm kind of a fan. And they say, oh, flag warning, trigger warning, you upset me, you offended me because you like somebody that I don't like. Therefore, we need to come down on you. We need to defend these things and say, wait a second. It's not okay for you to come down on my right just to voice my opinion because you feel that you're offended. The Kansas State Senate, as of last week, endorsed legislation Wednesday forbidding public colleges and universities from creating free speech zones. Is the first piece of it. Number 2, compelling students to adopt particular beliefs and requiring meetings on student fees to be open to the public. Senate Bill 40, scheduled for the final action Thursday last week, would have also prevented institutions from banning speakers from campuses based on the content of their speech. Let me tell you something. I am all for the freedom of speech for any college, anybody, any speaker to come to a college university and speak on it, no matter what they say. In my college that I went to, Bowling Green State University in Ohio, And it was funny. I was actually doing a radio show at that time there. It was 2 to 4 in the morning, but I still was doing a show. That was my very first time in radio, trying to get my feet wet in a little bit. There was a speaker that came that the college Democrats ended up promoting, which I don't understand what he would have to say that was productive. I don't understand what he could have said that was actually listenable. But they brought Bill Ayers, the domestic terrorist, Bill Ayers. They paid him as a speaker to come to a university to talk about politics. The college Democrat. Now, we brought some speakers. I mean, we brought Tom Tancredo, which was a representative from Colorado. He was big on the immigration thing, and he got protested. They had protesters there because they thought he was a bigoted racist because he wanted to close the borders and stop illegal immigration. He was the very first one, by the way, to talk about illegal immigration coming into the United States, and he showed video on the House floor of immigrants walking across the border with mattresses and with dressers and with everything else, walking across the border, and no one's even doing anything about it in the middle of the nighttime. Cameras catching this on video. That's what he showed on the floor, and they called him a racist for doing so. And they protested him vehemently for coming to our campus because we paid him as the college Republicans to bring him as a speaker onto the college campus grounds. But the Democrats, bringing in a domestic terrorist like Bill Ayers from Weather Underground. Now, I don't know what he had to say. I did not go, and I didn't even want to protest it because we're not the protesting type, because we're actually respective of other people's opinions. I did not go, but the fact that they even brought in a domestic terrorist to speak boggled the mind. But yet they had the right to do so. They also brought in speakers like Seth MacFarlane because he wanted to talk about politics. Some people wanted to protest it. I didn't see it a good idea to protest. But we need to defend the right for any type of speaker to come in and to be able to voice their opinion. 316-721-8255. Let's take a quick phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Hey, good morning, Jim. How are you?
Well, I've got two things to comment on. First, I want to comment on the First Amendment. I went by Walmart this morning a couple hours ago to do a little grocery shopping when the store was half empty. And I noticed on the magazine rack, this is the print magazines, they no longer have any of the gun magazines.
No, of course not, because guns are really scary, bad things.
Right. I mean, that's encouraging all this problem. So the First Amendment as well as the Second Amendment don't matter for Walmart anymore. The other point on the immigration thing, in the 13th and 14th Amendment, we have the rights of citizenship laid out, and they wanted to make clear that the slaves who were brought over here by force were citizens.
Sure.
But the law is written up so poorly, they didn't think about people walking across the Mexican border. And today we have a tremendous number of women who are 8 and 8.5 weeks or months pregnant coming across the border to get free medical care and citizenship and an anchor baby.
Sure.
And we need to change that law in Congress so that citizenship transfers only if they're here legally on a residence visa, not a student visa, not a tourist visa, not a temporary work permit. They're here to become a citizen, and they have a baby, then the baby's a citizen. But unless you meet those requirements, they shouldn't. Citizenship that's given away for free doesn't mean anything.
No, you need to have a family member that is a U.S. citizen for you to, when you have a child, whether you're in the United States or outside of the United States, if you have a family member or a parent that is a U.S. citizen, then you do get that citizenship. But you're right, to come across the border, to be able to have a child, that you are not protected by that citizenship, birthright citizenship. It doesn't work that way because you have to be abiding by the U.S. law. You have to be abiding by the laws of the land. When you're here illegally and you come across and you have a baby, then you're no longer abiding by those laws because you were never you never committed to them. You never said, hey, these are laws that I'm going to live by. These are the laws that I'm going to actually have. These are the laws that I'm going to abide by. That you never said that because you came here illegally. No one knows that you're here. You're not supposed to be here in the first place. And then you have a kid and say, oh, well, I guess I can't go anywhere. It doesn't work that way. You're absolutely right, Jim. I appreciate that. Now, when it comes to the freedom of speech part, it goes right into the elections that we had talked about a little bit earlier. When we have bullies trying to intimidate you to be able to vote one single way, by progressives saying that just because you may be illegal and you maybe you shouldn't have gone and to come here across the border illegally, but don't worry, we'll take care of you. We'll give you housing. We'll give you food. We'll give you a job. We'll get you registered. We'll get you to show up. And oh, by the way, just like we saw the videos of in New York City, where they say, hey, we're just going to start by the campaign funded to bus people from precinct to precinct to precinct to precinct. And because of that, they didn't vote more than one time. Of course not. Did you ever watch the movie Gangs of New York? It was a great movie. It was with Leonardo DiCaprio when he was younger. Not a big fan of him, but it was a good movie. I did enjoy it. And during election time, they did that. Oh, you only voted 3 times. What are you talking about? We need to get you in and vote again. Hey, I just voted for the other guy. Oh, what are you voting for him for? Come on over here and vote for this guy. That's what progressives do. That's what they've done for a really long time. And they're able to do that when they silence the freedom of speech, when they silence the opposition from actually having the right to speak. And we cannot allow that. Open up the colleges to whoever that they're at, whoever wants to come and actually make their voice heard, whoever the organizations, the college Republicans, the college Democrats, no matter what organization it may be, even the LGBT community, even the Tea Partiers, even the whoever that says, I want to bring a speaker in. Let them speak. Let them have their voice heard. Yes, you're going to get the protesters because some people feel really offended by that, feel really triggered by that. But at the same time, we have that right. I mean, come on, we let a domestic terrorist come and speak at a college campus, but if we try to bring in Tom Tancredo, who's an elected official, a racist, how dare you actually allow him to come here? It's absurd.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Into the Voice of Reason. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Wrapping up hour number 1. The Facebook Live blowing up today. The last couple of days, actually. Appreciate it very much. Like it, share it. It's easy to do. Leave a comment. Say good morning. Call me a jerk. I don't really care. It's okay. I can take it. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Let's go to Rick with the news. What do you say?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and a good Tuesday, and a good first day of spring to everyone. A trial gets underway this week for 3 members of a militia group accused of conspiring to bomb a mosque and apartment complex that was housing Somalis in Garden City. Patrick Stein, Gavin Wright, and Curtis Allen are charged with conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and conspiracy against civil rights. Stein also faces a weapons-related charge, and Wright has an additional charge of lying to the FBI. Jury selection in that trial gets underway today. Police have identified the victim in this past Sunday's shooting at Deuce's Bar in Wichita as 27-year-old Dwayne Brunson. No arrests have yet been made. KWCH-TV reports that Brunson was a former college basketball player in Kansas, playing for Barton County Community College before moving to Fort Hays State University from 2012 to 2014. And recent rains across the Sunflower State have given emergency responders a respite from a wave of wildfires that have charred more than 27 square miles across several counties in recent days. The Kansas Adjutant General's Department said in a news release yesterday that the wildfire outbreak began March 14th in Rice County and later included fires in Barber, Butler, Kiowa, Labette, McPherson, Montgomery, Reno, and Seward counties. The Operations Center in Topeka said that they've monitored 62 fires reported over the course of 4 days' time. It's a whole lot of burning.
That's a whole lot of burning for this early in the year. Hopefully that's not a trend that we're going to see throughout the entire summer, or else we're going to be in trouble.
Hopefully this rainfall is going to quell some of that.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, let's keep that coming for a while.
That's the news. More at the top of the hour, and late word out of another explosion that happened overnight in Texas. This bomb going off at a FedEx facility.
You know, I'm wondering if we should ban bombs.
I think we should just set a bunch of gun magazines around potential bombing sites to protect them, because gun magazines are wicked.
Oh, gun magazines are scary and wicked, but just like how we should ban guns because that way the guns will never be used ever again, we should probably ban bombs so that way the bad guys don't use bombs to do bad things.
It worked so well with alcohol during Prohibition.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Oh, wait a second. Bombs are already banned. Oh, that's right.
Silly
oh, yeah.
boy.
There's a silly kids. Bombs are already illegal. That's Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
Funny how that works. Yeah, we try and ban something so that way the bad guys don't do it again. Maybe we should ban AR-15s. Maybe we should ban their evil, scary assault rifles, and we should ban them. And then we won't see any more school shootings with them. We won't see any more trouble with them ever again, because banning bombs has totally made no bombs ever go off in the United States, including down in Texas, with how many have been going off the last couple of months. This is the mentality of the progressive left right now. Maybe we should make it to where we just don't have the guns anymore. Yeah, and see how well that works for you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Wrapping up the discussion when it comes to free speech on college campuses. The funny, intriguing part about all this is, While we're looking at legislation in the state of Kansas to make sure to protect freedom of speech, to protect any type of speaker to come to university campuses and to speak on anything, including, I know, the really, really scary ones like Ann Coulter or Ben Shapiro or Milo Yiannopoulos or some of these other conservatives that want to come to college campuses that have been banned on many of them or protested to the point to where it's too dangerous to have them come. The funny thing is that according to theatlantic.com, with a survey of over 3,000 college students in 240 colleges, 81% view freedom of the press as secure, while 73% view their freedom of speech on college campus as either secure or very secure. 73%. Meaning a large majority of the students feel that their rights are protected to be able to have freedom of speech. But again, how many of those are the activists of the progressive side saying that as long as I'm able to express my views, then I'm great? If someone says, I am supportive of Donald Trump, or I am supportive of Chris Kobach or of Sam Brownback or of somebody like that, then you are by default a racist, which means you are by default spreading hate speech. Therefore, you are by default not protected under the First Amendment. How many of them are hypocrites in that sense because they try and link dots that aren't even there, but see dots because they're probably on something else to where they see things that aren't actually there, like hate speech, just because you're supportive of a conservative. It's fascinating to watch, isn't it? This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Lots more to get to today. Hour number 2 coming up. Don't go anywhere.
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? You're okay. You're a chemist. You're a teacher. You're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of South Central Kansas, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Good morning. Welcome aboard. However you may be listening, wherever you may be listening, we love having you along. We appreciate that very, very much. 8 minutes past the hour, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. A heck of a show coming to you for the next couple hours as we have a lot to get to today. As you know, some big news finally beginning to break out of the state legislature. They are finally able to start moving on, productive things. Yes, productive things like taxes and like spending and like finance and education and some of those things where we may not see the best result, but at least we're moving to something. And now you and I have the opportunity to change some of that. Coming up in hour number 3, State Representative from District number 94, Leo Delperdang. He'll be joining us and giving us an update from all of that. Speaking of, by the way, he does send out a weekly email blast on kind of a weekly recap of the legislative session. And one of the issues that we may touch on if we have time as well was the agricultural hemp bill that is being heard right now. That's still moving forward. I thought it was kind of dead and dropped off, but it is still alive and moving forward to some degree. So we may, if we get a chance to ask him about that as well. Plus, in about 45 minutes, half hour from now, City Council member for the Wichita City Council, Bryan Frye, he'll be joining us as he does with his weekly update on the City Council meeting. So lots to get to, but for this half hour right now, it's open lines to you, 316-721-8255. As we talk about some of the tax issues in the state of Kansas, and I don't want to go down that road yet. I do have some numbers right now, what they're talking about with potential sales tax and online sales tax and property tax rates, and some of those I will touch on in a little bit. But right now, we need to set the record straight on exactly what is a tax credit and a tax exemption. As you're filing for your taxes and as you're going about trying to file your taxes and owe the state of Kansas some money, and as we hear about opportunities for us to get tax credits and tax exemptions, it's a good thing, especially for businesses. It's a very, very good thing, because that means that you did something to reinvest in yourself, reinvest in the community, reinvest in something that's allowing you to actually write that off on your taxes because it was an incentive for you to do so. It's the focus on the private sector. Now, I would be much more happy if we actually consolidated some of our tax laws and we actually got rid of the tax credits and exemptions and we wouldn't need them. I know people hear about that. Oh, get rid of it. What? But I would be much more happy with actually trying to consolidate the rules a little bit to where you don't need them because you're actually going to get a better benefit by just having a really low tax rate. A flat tax, a fair tax with only the sales tax, no income tax, with something like that. That way, we could be productive in saying, it's going to be simple, it's going to be easy. We don't have to worry about trying to write things off on our taxes. But as we're talking about that, and right now being around tax season, it's interesting how we're portraying what tax credits and tax exemptions are. I don't know if you saw it or not. It was about a month ago, just under a month ago, a few weeks ago, when the Wichita Eagle had a video on their website, Kansas.com, and they had a video on how do tax credits and exemptions work in Kansas. And I thought it was appropriate, especially now getting a little bit closer towards tax time. At the same time, as we're talking about some of the tax debates at the legislative level on what we really need to focus on to be able to write more things off, so that way we're not going to be owing the government ridiculous amounts of money, and you're not going to be paying out the you-know-whats in order to pay for the government programs that they feel are more important than your own damn paycheck. So it's about a 1.5-minute video. Now, there's no audio to it other than music, so I'm going to read this to you, but I find it fascinating how they describe what a tax credit and exemption is, because if you remember, the progressives and the mainstream media will do whatever they can to demonize you keeping your own money. So if there's a tax credit or an exemption for you as an individual or you as a business, they're going to find a way to make that sound really, really bad. So if you're maybe not familiar with how taxes work, if you're a younger individual trying to learn this on your own, then you're going to say, wait a second, why do we have these exemptions and credits? That's not right. So here's what some of the video had to say. First off, it says tax credits and exemptions allow people or organizations to lower their tax bill or to not pay taxes on certain items or transactions. Let's stop right there. It allows people and businesses to lower their tax bill or not to pay taxes on certain items or transactions. Sounds nice. Do you think they have a political agenda behind that? It allows them to not pay taxes. Now, to a progressive, again, that says, oh my gosh. Because you're not paying your taxes. If you remember the LLC tax break or tax exemption that we gave the LLCs during the 2012 tax reform that Governor Brownback did, that was demonized to the fullest extent as a loophole. Not as an incentive, not as a tax exemption, not as a tax credit, but as a loophole that the businesses are somehow getting away with something that they shouldn't be getting away with. Because they should have to be paying those taxes, and the fact that they're not means that they're getting away with something, and it's a really, really bad thing. So they're already setting the stage on the fact that, oh, wait a second, the red flag goes up in the progressive's mind or the open-minded individual saying, wait a second, you're not paying taxes on certain transactions. Here it is. And then the very next slide. The revenue Kansas gives up every year because of tax credits or exemptions is growing. Let me read that again. The revenue Kansas gives up, the revenue the government is giving up, meaning that they're entitled to that money, but they're openly saying, we're going to give it up for your own benefit because we are the lords, you are the peasants, and I shall grant you your pennies with a tax credit or exemption. That should be ours as our revenue for the state of Kansas, but we will give you this because we are the lords lording over you, and we will allow you to be able to continue to keep that money as a write-off as opposed to us taking it because we are a gracious government, and you should be very thankful for this gracious government. Funny how they set this up, isn't it? The revenue Kansas gives up every year because of credits or exemptions is growing. And then they see a nice little chart of the green going up and the arrow going upwards. Oh, it's going even higher and higher. The state gives up more than $6 billion a year through credits or exemptions. The state gives $6 billion, gives up $6 billion a year. We could be getting that. And, we do have a educational funding problem that's going to come up very, very soon to where we're going to have to find close to $2 billion over the next 4 years to be able to increase in educational finance. According to the study that just came out Friday last week, if we're giving up $6 billion that is granted to the government that we are giving because we are a gracious government, and we should be very thankful as the peasants we are, then all we have to do is start getting rid of some of those tax exemptions or credits, and they could be getting close to $6 billion that can pay for the educational finance increase that they need, that can pay for the judicial problem that they need, that can pay for the highway project that they need. All we have to do is not be a gracious government anymore and just consume what we need to without the tax credits. Do you realize the mindset here? This is the progressives' mindset that the government deserves every penny that you have, and the fact that they're allowing you to write things off and giving you a credit or an exemption means that you should be on your knees, groveling, kissing their shoes, thanking them for the fact that you get to keep a little bit more of your money because they are so gracious to allow that to happen. This is the mindset. And by the way, this is the mindset of the mainstream media posting a video like this trying to explain to you what a tax credit or exemption is. The state gives up more than $6 billion a year through credits or exemptions, according to Candace.com. It continues. Most is from credits or exemptions required by federal law or to prevent taxing something twice. Oh, well, we wouldn't want that, would we, government? Yeah. More than $1 billion comes from programs lawmakers choose to allow. They choose to allow these programs for exemptions. A new report shows that Kansas's tax credit and exemption oversight isn't as strong as other states. Oh, we're getting away with stuff. And there it goes on from there. We're getting away with things. Our oversight isn't as strong. We're writing things off that we shouldn't be. We're allowing exemptions and credits that we probably shouldn't be. We're giving up $6 billion a year that could be going towards our government because it is a grateful government that's allowing us to do this. And now it's time to start overseeing this a little bit more stringent. It should be allowing us to, or they should be, tightening up the girdle a little bit on this to where we can start closing some of those gaps and loopholes of what you're allowed to write off because, ladies and gentlemen, your money is not really your money. It should be the government's money. And then whatever they allow you to keep, you should be thanking them and be very grateful. This is exactly their mindset. This is exactly what they believe. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why in the last hour I related them to a T to the KGB of Russia. The progressive ideology, not the parties, but the progressive ideology, because they want the government to be first and foremost as a top priority. And then whatever you have left, that's cute. You should be thanking us for that.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Maybe it's just me in a bit of a feisty mood this morning, which could be possible, I guess, but it's so stupid to try and have a video article trying to explain. I mean, this is exactly, the title says it's not an opinion piece, that it's not a piece on saying how the government can get more revenue. No, this is trying to explain and break things down for people to say, what is a tax credit and exemption? That's very simple. It's very simple. How do tax credits and exemptions work in Kansas? That's the title of it, explaining to people how you can actually break down tax credits and exemptions for the state. And instead of saying this is a tax credit and an exemption when you invest in yourself, if you start a business, if you're purchasing things for the business, if you're expanding your business, if you're an individual and maybe you did some home renovations and you invested in yourself, you did some charitable givings, you did this, you did that. I mean, these are write-offs and exemptions and credits that you can have for your taxes, so that way you're not paying taxes on that because you did something good. You did something. That's how it should be explained. End of story. That you get to keep more money in your paycheck or more money in your wallet because you did things outside of just contributing to the government. You did things that were good, that were positive, that grew the economy, that grew the private sector. That is what a tax credit or exemption is. Not, look at that. We are so grateful giving you $6 billion that the revenue is losing out on the state for. And you could be keeping that money in your pocket. You could be purchasing new things in the government level. You could be investing in new government projects and programs. The video continued on right after the next slide. Repealing some credits and exemptions could bring in hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Well, as we're talking about now, the drastic spending increases that we're going to see at the state level potentially, unless we act now, and I'm telling you, we got to act now, when it comes to close to $2 billion for the educational finance over the next 4 years, when it comes to the judicial branch that wants close to $20 to $25 million, when it comes to the highway projects, because apparently our roads are crumbling, being number 2 for the best highways in the entire country, apparently our highways are crumbling and we're going to need new projects. So we need to spend on that more. We need to spend on education more. We need to spend all across the board. Got to spend a heck of a lot more money. And, the fact that we're starting to do better, we're actually doing better when it comes to our economy. We're actually doing better when it comes to the GDP. We've seen tax revenues higher than projections for 9 months in a row now? The progressives are all hyping up because of the tax increases. Now that we've seen that, we're still going to raise our taxes even more, because just imagine if we raise our taxes even higher, then we'll see even more tax revenue coming in higher than projections. Then we'll be solid. Baby, then we'll be golden. We'll be able to see so much money flowing into the state government. It'll be fantastic. Well, what about the people? Heck with the people. They're the ones creating the revenue for the government. And then once the government starts doing well, then we can help them back out by starting to give them a little bit of chump change back, right? This is the way the government and the progressives think. It's fascinating to watch. These are ones that don't care about you. They say they do. They really say they do, and they push it hard and all on the campaign trail as they're running for elections, whether it's the state legislature, whether it's a governorship, whether it's a congressional seats, and they come to you and they knock on your door. I'm so-and-so, and I'd like to run for office. Okay, what do you stand for? Well, I support the government. Okay, what's the government done for me? Well, if you give us enough money, then we'll be able to take care of you, and we can make you a nanny state. And we can be the mother that holds your hand and carries you throughout life, and we can take care of you, and as long as you keep voting for us. Maybe we need to go towards the Bernie Sanders style policies to where we need to attack the rich and elite. I'm going to own 3 different vacation homes, but you don't necessarily need that type of luxury because you need to pay your fair share. And if you have that many things, we probably need to take it away from you. If you try and write some of that off, if you're doing good and maybe you're building homes and you're working in construction and you build 3 of your own homes, but then you try and build, it doesn't matter. We don't need you to write that kind of stuff off. You need to be paying that into the government. If you're making millions of dollars and you're successful because, you're a hard worker and you created your own business, you probably don't need that. We need to cap your level of success. We need to cap your level of how much you're allowed to have or what you're allowed to do. We need to cap it. We need to take everything else from you and then redistribute it among everybody else, because that way we can take care of those that put us in office. The question is, how do we fight that mentality? Because people that are under that spell never seem to go away from that spell. The progressive ideology is so deep and dark that there's really no coming out of it in the end. There's really no way of changing that thought process. If you become a Bernie Sanders-ite, because he's the anti-establishment, which is funny because he's been in office for 30 plus years. If you become the socialist that you believe in redistribution, if you believe in capping profits, if you believe in hating the rich, you never come back from that. I've never heard of an individual say, yeah, I love socialism. I love the big government. I love the nannyism. I love the redistribution. I love hating the rich. I love that. And until we actually see complete redistribution to everybody on the same equal playing field, meaning everybody poor, standing in line for their stale bread and vodka, until everybody's like that, I'm never going to be happy. I've never heard someone say, I believe in that, and then, oh my gosh, the light bulb came on. No, that's okay. I'm actually going to become a profiteer capitalist. I've never heard that before. Maybe it's happened. And if you've been one of those, I'd love to hear that experience on that evolution that you've had on actually progressing in the right way. But I've never heard that before. Because the more and more that you actually have a dialogue, the more they get ingrained. They say, wait a second, no. The rich and elite are actually controlling the nation. It's a fascist nation because they control everything. Oh, look at all the special interests and how much money the super PACs go into different elections. So that way you're not, and I'm not saying that that's all wrong. Some of that has some legitness to it. But at the same time, when you just hate everybody because they own a business, look, you, the local business owner, the restaurant owner, the retail store owner, the online shop owner, the corporation, the manufacturing plant, the whatever, you are the rich and elite. You're not, but that's how they see you. And then when you try and write off whatever you can on your taxes to be able to save a little bit because you're doing things that's growing yourself, and the government hopefully wants you to grow yourself in a realistic world, then that's a good thing. And then you see videos like this from the Wichita Eagle. Repealing tax credits could bring in hundreds of millions of dollars a year to the state government. And with our financial problems, we don't need to be cutting off some of our funding. We just need to find more revenues, and the best way we can do that is begin repealing credits and exemptions. Ladies and gentlemen, that was your 101 class on Wichita Eagle's website, Candace.com, on how to break down and understand tax credits and exemptions. All it is to them is a lack of revenue the government could be seeing, but they're grateful enough to give to us. That's how they break it down to make everybody else understand what it actually is. It's pathetic, it's wrong, and it's dangerous. Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason.
That's the one thing we got, and I said, what about breakfast at Tiffany? She said, I think I remember the film, and as I recall.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Right on! Let's do it! Rock that world! Rock that world!
Give him a call at 721-TALK.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Tuesday as we are getting ready for tax season. By the way, tax day coming up in just I filed my taxes already. It is done and over with. It's something I don't look forward to. I don't think anybody looks forward to any time of the year. But as we are going into tax season, make sure to prepare. And I find it fascinating. Absolutely boggles the mind how they try and break down. Let's explain to you what tax credits and exemptions actually are. And instead of saying it's a benefit to you, they're just saying it's a lost revenue for the government. Unbelievable. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's shift gears here a little bit. It is time, as we do every single week, it is time for our city update.
We built this city.
And back in studio with us after their trip from Washington, D.C. last week, City Councilman Bryan Frye back with us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Andy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. You guys had a lot of fun last week out in Washington, D.C.
Work is fun, yes.
Yeah. You crammed a lot in 2-3 days.
Yeah, that's right. We were out there for 2 days when you take out the travel day. But we had back-to-back meetings with our congressional delegation along with multiple federal agencies, really talking about issues that affect Wichita and the region. So.
Sure. Well, good. Well, let's get into some of that because I want to cover not only that, but then the city council meeting that you had a couple weeks ago as well with the fireworks. But first off, last week in Washington, D.C., you got to meet a lot of our elected officials, our delegation.
That's right.
How did that go? They were excited to see you guys?
Very receptive. I mean, we didn't used to do this group federal lobbying effort as a council. Started about 3 years ago, and we just come in and really make our top priorities known to them. Certainly we communicate that to them all the time.
Sure.
But when we're on their turf, it's much more impactful. Right?
Sure, absolutely.
So we visited with Congressman Estes, Congressman Marshall, and then Senators Moran and Roberts. And some people go, well, why Marshall? He's not in Wichita's district. That's not his district, right? The Elquist beds, which is one of our secondary water sources, most of it lies in Reno County, which
Okay.
is part of his district. So.
Sure. Yeah, but but even if it wasn't, I mean, it would still be good just to kind of make sure we're on the same page and
Right.
all of our Kansas delegation is actually kind of working for the same goal and everything. So it's good just to see them up there anyways.
Absolutely. And as Wichita goes, so goes South Central Kansas, and that is part of Congressman Marshall's district as well. So certainly to keep those priorities known to them.
Sure.
And again, the things that we were talking to them about really affect most of mid-central Kansas.
Sure.
Top priorities were Amtrak and the establishment of the Heartland Flyer, sales tax collection from internet sales.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now we're not collecting a lot of that, and we're losing out that revenue that we should be getting because it's purchases that our residents are making, but we're not collecting the sales tax. The North End Highway Project, where 4 highways come together, K96, 254,
Sure.
235, and 135. That affects not only Wichita, but the entire region. And then certainly our regional water supply, which I mentioned earlier with the Equus beds.
Absolutely. Well, how did that go? Now, I'm vaguely familiar with, I know that we come off a Cheney Reservoir for our water in the area here. Are our water tables okay right now? Are we looking decently? And then I know that you guys did have a meeting with the EPA on some of that stuff, but how is our situation with water right now?
Well, certainly we can use more rain, obviously. Most of the state is in a drought situation, but for the last couple of years, Cheney Lake has been full, and that is our primary water source. And we are pulling off of the pool level, which is the secondary dam.
Sure.
So we're able to pull that difference between the primary dam and the secondary dam and use that as our water supply. And that's been great for the last couple of years. In those extreme drought conditions, we pull from our secondary water source, which is the Equus beds.
Okay.
Which is underground aquifer. That right now it's at 98% capacity, so it's great.
Good.
We're
Okay.
very full with that.
Sure.
We have to continue to push away the salt plume, which could, if that invade that water supply, then it's not going to be usable.
Sure.
And agriculture depends on that aquifer very much.
Okay.
And so that project is continuing to get finished out. So, I mean, right now we're in good situation, but certainly more rain is much appreciated.
Is much needed. Well, it's one of those situations where I don't like to think about the water usage because you start thinking about just the population of just even the city limits of Wichita and the surrounding area and so many people and how much water we use on a daily basis. Right. And just it gets overwhelming. And then you think about that it comes off a reservoir or a lake and you're just like, oh, what if it goes dry?
Right.
And that panic kind of sets in. And I don't know. I never like to think about that. So it's good to hear that we're in a good position right now.
Especially when you consider the amount of water that our manufacturing hubs use. I mean,
Sure.
Spirit uses over 1 million gallons a day. You'd think, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but
That's a lot.
It's amazing.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so not only do we have to have that water for our personal use and our needs with our family, but our industry needs it.
Sure.
So we have to continue to make sure we've got that 50-year water supply.
Very good. Very good. Now, you mentioned Amtrak a little bit as well. Amtrak coming to Wichita.
Still working on that, obviously. That's been a dream for many people to make that connection from Oklahoma City to Wichita, then on to Newton, where then it connects with the Southwest Chief, which goes L.A. to Chicago.
Okay.
But that gap between Oklahoma City and Wichita is what we've really been concentrating on, getting that reestablished. And there's been great progress made. Continue to work with Amtrak. They see this as a low-hanging fruit, that this is one of their top priorities, is trying to make this happen. They did a tour last summer where they brought trains in and rode the rails, and the condition of the rails are in great shape. Doesn't look like there needs to be a lot of capital investment. There's going to be a little bit of a funding gap between the revenue that they bring in and the expense, and that's what we got to figure out. Who's going to be able to help with that? Is it City of Wichita? Is it State of Kansas? Who?
Sure.
But it's looking really strong.
Very good. Has there been a demand that you've heard in the general public that just says, hey, we'd love for that to come here?
In fact, Amtrak has a van pool right now that will take people from Newton to Wichita to Oklahoma City. And it's a charter bus, and it runs every day. And you can grab it and hit Oklahoma City in time to pick up the next train on to Dallas or Fort Worth. And it's running at 80% plus occupancy.
Wow.
And that's a van.
Sure.
So imagine if it was actual rail, and instead of having to transfer cars to train and just one continuous.
Sure.
So the demand is certainly there.
Very good. Well, it sounds like it was a very productive trip out there. It was a busy couple of days. I don't know how you guys crammed that into 2 days.
Yeah,
but,
it's intense.
Yeah, it's fun. The week prior to, I do want to recap that just a little bit. I know it was going to be kind of a hotly contested meeting with the firework discussion. How did that go? Any progress on one way or another?
It was good. We had a very long council meeting that day because of the proposed options. The fire department has 2 different options for us. And we took public comment, and at the end of the morning, half were in favor of it and half were against it.
Shocker. Yes.
It's exactly what we thought would happen. There's a lot of good options, a lot of good proposals in the fire department's recommendations. So we felt like it was best to take those proposals and go back out to the community through our district advisory boards to hear them so that we can get more input. Again, I still think it's probably going to be about a 50-50 split. But again, to let people know what are the options and if we can find some kind of a compromise between those two. At the end of the day, what we're doing is not working. Mm-hmm. We know we're spending a lot of money on prevention and trying to respond to fire calls and so forth.
Sure.
But we're not realizing any of the revenue from sales. And so there's got to be some kind of a compromise, and they give us quite a few options, but we're going to probably hear it again around the April 10th, I would imagine, April 17th meeting.
Okay.
After we get through all the dabs. I know District 2 has already heard it. We're scheduled to hear it at my dab on April 2nd.
Okay.
So.
This could be a perfect opportunity. We don't see true, legit compromise and negotiation anymore in politics, and it's kind of disheartening, especially when we see it at the federal level and sort of thing. But this is a perfect opportunity for us to really see, with about half and half when it comes to pro wanting to just boom anytime you want and then wanting to not do that, to find a happy compromise and find a way that we can make everybody happy within the community. Right,
and I think at the end of the day, you're going to see a shorter window of when you can shoot them off.
Sure.
I think you're going to see reduced hours that you can shoot them off. You're going to see lower fines, and that sounds like, well, why would you lower the fines? Lower the fines so that it's more enforceable. So people are going to, we're going to send out more tickets. It's going to be one of those things where we catch you in the act, and it's going to be able to be police and or fire. Mm-hmm. They're not going to have to witness you shooting him now. It's enough going to be have the evidence.
If it's in your driveway, then you probably did it. Yeah.
Right. So right now the way the ordinance is written is too loose.
Sure.
There's too much variables. So we're going to have a tighter restrictions, more opportunity to collect fine revenue, probably going to increase the tent rental expense. So there is going to be some compromise.
Sure.
How much we go with it, I think there'll be some designated shoot areas that you can bring the larger scale fireworks to and shoot them, but they'll be supervised. There'll be fire people there. So again, you're right. It's going to be some type of a compromise. So
sure. Well, hopefully we'll see some productivity on that. We've got a couple minutes left, but the city council meeting today, what's on the slate for today if people want to come out and check it out?
So we've got some great things happening. LTC, which is a supplier of composite-based materials, not only for aerospace, but also military and automotive industry. They're seeking a tax abatement of 5+5, which would allow them to add an additional 32 employees, build an additional facility that's about an $8 million expansion. So, I mean, they're growing. It's a fantastic company. And then you talked earlier about historic tax credits. Mm-hmm. The Kansas Aviation Museum completed a project recently where it's about a $1.8 million expansion, and they have historic tax credits that they're selling so that they can eliminate the debt that they had.
Sure.
Which is about $200,000 remaining on their debt to us because we fronted the money.
Okay.
They're going to be able to use those historic tax credits to wipe away that debt.
Very good.
So we're going to approve that sale. And then we've got the contract extension for Greater Wichita Partnership, which is our economic development arm that does a lot of the talent recruitment, job expansion, and so forth.
Sure.
So
get to see some growth in the area.
Absolutely. The number one priority that I see that we've got right now is talent recruitment and retention. We've got to get more people in this community. We've got jobs available for them, great jobs. We just got to get more people here.
We got to entice it. We've talked about it many times before, but you're right. We've seen the stagnation when it comes to people saying, hey, you know what, Wichita or even Kansas itself is a great area to move to. Last year, the U-Haul report showed that we were number 38 in the country as a state for people migrating to the state. We need to get that number up quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's changed since last year. I think we're improved that position, but
Sure.
we've got to continue to make that effort, and we've got to continue to recruit in those other communities that might be suffering more than we are, So but we've got great jobs, and we just got to get that story out there, get people here, and increase this population.
Hey, little by little. I love it. If people do want to show up to the city council meeting today, where is it and how can they do so?
So we start at 9:30 at City Hall, which is Central and Main. And make sure you allow extra time for security.
Extra time for security. That's right. City Council Member Bryan Frye. We love having you in studio, my friend. Great stuff with the last couple of weeks. We look forward to seeing what happens today.
Thank you, Andy.
Hey, always a pleasure, my friend. 48 minutes past the hour. Let's take a break. Wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to. This is The Voice of Reason.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. Lots more to get to today. It's a fun one today, just because it's a Tuesday and we're just awesome like that. Let's go to Rick with the news.
Hey, good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Authorities have arrested 2 more people after a man was killed at a Kansas lake last week. The body of 22-year-old Taylor Sawyer was found after a caller reported witnessing a deadly shooting at Perry Lake on Tuesday night. The Salina Post reports that 22-year-old Jonathan Blevins was arrested in Lawrence for intentional second-degree murder on Wednesday. Then on Friday of last week, officers also arrested and booked 18-year-old Ashlyn Hemmerling for first-degree murder and 37-year-old Sarah Hemmerling for obstructing apprehension or prosecution. Authorities say a Lawrence police officer has been shot in the leg during firearms training. Police described the shooting yesterday afternoon at the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge as an accident in a news release.
Oopsies.
The Lawrence Journal-World reports that the officer was taken to the hospital. He is in stable condition. The release says that the preliminary investigation indicates the officer was wounded when equipment became entangled inside the firearm's trigger guard, causing the weapon to discharge. No other details were provided about the shooting. And the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and the Johnson County Health Department say 10 cases of measles have been identified in Johnson, Lynn, and Miami counties. The agency said in a news release yesterday the 8 Johnson County residents and 1 Lynn County resident who contracted the disease are associated with a child care facility in Johnson County. That's the news. I'm out of here.
Bam! Rick with the news right there. Appreciate that very much, as always. I do have to laugh at some of the... Now, I'm not laughing at that officer in any way, shape, or form. I'm glad he's okay, but you do have to chuckle sometimes, because even individuals that try and use firearms sometimes forget that it's not a toy and that it's an actual weapon. You got to be careful with it and actually pray. Do you ever see those videos online of the guys trying to show off a little bit and trying to do the quick draw and trying to do different things, and they're trying to show somebody or show a cute girl, and they're trying to show off with the gun, and it goes off, or the guy that's trying to draw it out of his holster really quick and do the quick shot and ends up firing and shooting his foot, and you just chuckle and smile sometimes and be like, you got to use a little common sense, and you need to be a little safe. Now, this officer, obviously, with what Rick said, it got tangled and accidentally discharged, so nothing like that, so that's good, but at least he's okay, but always have to be careful, which is why this fun debate about firearms right now is all about we need to educate and use the safety procedure and teach people how to be safe around firearms. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what these programs are there for. If you actually look at some of the NRA programs, the NRA actually has some of the best programs out there in order to teach you safety with the firearm, because it's not a toy. Instead of being fearful of guns, maybe we should actually just look at what the programs are about and learn about the safety, understand the firearm. Then we actually wouldn't be scared of them, instead of saying, oh, let's go ahead and ban it, because apparently banning a gun is going to be, well, it's really going to be just as efficient as banning bombs down in Texas. Ha! Let's go to the phones and wrap up hour number 2. What do you say? Good morning. What's your name?
Just calling in a little bit early, Andy.
Hey, good morning for Leo Delperdang right there. Hang tight here, and we'll get you on in just a second. I am excited about being able to talk with him when we do come back. Hour number 3, we have a lot to get to as we have noticed some of the big news finally beginning to come out of the state legislature when it comes to the study for educational finance that was released on Friday, the votes on guns, which, by the way, we are going to be having as well on Monday next week. We're going to be having the regional director for the NRA, Mr. Travis Couture Lovelady. He's going to be joining us on Monday talking about some of those votes, but we'll get State Representative Leo Delperdang in his opinion on those as well. When it comes to those votes last week, things are starting to move pretty quickly. And Bryan Frye, city council member for Wichita, actually just mentioned this in the last segment as well, talking about some of the taxes, and one of them being internet sales tax. Now, he was in favor of it because he said, well, we're not getting any revenue from it. It's people who are transaction purchasing it just like anything else. They're doing it online, and we're not getting any revenue from that. Personally, I think that's okay, but we'll see what they do. Or if they do end up implementing sales tax on the internet, then we need to offset it somewhere else by lowering taxes elsewhere. I don't see that happening right now, but we have a lot of discussion, big discussions to be happening when it comes to our tax rates and to our spending. What's going to happen in the state of Kansas? Bryan Frye just mentioned we need to grow the city. We need to grow the population. We need to entice people to move here to the city. We need to entice people to move to the state, really, anywhere in the state. We need to be growing. What do I always say, especially when it comes to your business, when it comes to your career, when it comes to your family? If you're not growing, then you're failing. If you ain't first, you're last. If you're not actually growing and growing and growing and you're staying stagnant, then you're actually falling behind. The city and the state cannot do that either. The question is, how do we entice individuals to want to move to the city of Wichita? How do we get people to want to move to the state of Kansas? Is it going to be saying that we're going to start implementing newer taxes? Or is it going to be the fact that, hey, you're coming from a place where there was really high taxes. This is going to be a way better situation for you. So we'll talk about all of that and more. Hour number 3 is going to be our kick-ass hour number 3. State Representative Leo Delperdang, District number 94, going to join us here in just a minute, along with your phone calls. Lots to get to, lots of fun to be had. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and let's speak some reason like we always do. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
Why should we feel guilty for arresting you? Why should we be like, you know what? Okay, you're a chemist, you're a teacher, you're contributing to society. Let's just let it slide. Why? We have laws for a reason, and it makes no sense to me why we would just say, you know what? We need to reform our immigration policy, and it's just too stringent. We're just going to say, rule of law, hey, here's a window. Let's go ahead and throw it out there.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3, broadcasting live across the entire South Central Kansas area. Right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning. Great to have you along today on a Tuesday. It is really the greatest day of the entire week. It is a Tuesday. You've used up all your get-go for the start of the week on a Monday. We are almost seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Today is the progressive day to actually get something done, the productive day to get something done at work because, well, you know what? We're awesome like that. We don't like to play the victim on a normal basis. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, 8 minutes past the hour as of right now. The Facebook Live is blowing up today. We thank you very much and appreciate that. Very much like it. Share it on your own page. Leave a comment saying good morning. Then call me a jerk. I don't really care, whatever you want to do. But we do appreciate when you check that out, as a lot of people are doing so this morning. Thanks again to Bryan Frye, city council member, last hour. And I want to jump right into it as we have a lot of citywide or statewide issues happening now with District number 94, State Representative Leo Delperdang is on the line with us. Leo, how are you, my friend?
Good, Andy. Glad to be here again.
Hey, I appreciate you very much coming on the show. I apologize that you have to breathe in the toxic fumes of Topeka while you're up there this week, but hopefully you're making it through. How's the session been so far? I mean, we're past the halfway point already, which I ask What have we done so far?
Now, I was hoping you wouldn't ask that.
Well, then there's that.
Yes. No, it's been pretty slow. I mean, on the positive side, we have been waiting for the education report. It finally came out on Friday. We got our hands on it.
It came out on Friday, and it was kind of the shock and awe statement with everybody saying what just happened, because we now have a study that comes out and says that we need close to $2 billion over the next 4 to 5 years to fund more in education. I don't know where we're going to get this money, Leo. How do we do this?
Now, that's a good question of how to actually get it.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as we don't know how to get it, then you might as well just do it.
Yeah, no, it's you look at the study like that, and it says the additional $2 billion, and you think about it, and complying with that, we're looking at either at least doubling, if not tripling, property taxes going toward the education, or possibly do we raise income taxes to the level of New York?
This is literally on the table to talk about.
Taxes, or sales taxes comparable to California. I mean, think about that. That's just not an option that's out there.
I saw a video on it. We were actually talking about it at the beginning of last hour from the Wichita Eagle, Candace.com. They had a video about a month or so ago that was trying to explain to people tax credits and tax exemptions, and how the state of course, the state of Kansas, their portrayal of it is you're not incentivizing yourself to actually reinvest in yourself, but it's actually just lost revenue from the government when you do a file with some kind of exemption or some type of tax credit or something. But it's close to $6 billion that the state of Kansas is losing out on. Are we talking about even starting to get rid of certain exemptions and tax credits and stuff that right now we actually keep money in our own pocket? Is that stuff going to go away soon?
Now, that's a good question, too. We had looked at some of those, the exemptions. I know there's some that are still hot to trot on the table, but there are several $1 billion in exemptions that could possibly be going away. Have not seen a whole lot of movement on addressing any of those, at least not in this legislative session.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. Well, let's talk about the detail of the report that came out. Other than saying that it's close to $2 billion that we need in additional funding, what did the report say? Did it say that we're short on resources or short on teachers' salaries? Why did it say that we need more money going to the school districts and the certain school districts? And are there any discrepancies in this report to where we should say, wait a second, maybe you didn't do your homework quite as well as you needed to here?
Yeah. First off, I will say I've got the report right here in my hands. It is 157 pages long.
Okay.
So it's not real something you can just go right to a certain one and say, yep, that's what we need, other than on page 70 of this, it talks about needing a 44.4% increase, and it says increase over current. So there are other things in there, but then here's where it gets interesting. When you start diving into this report, which we did, it breaks it down for every school district across the state.
Okay.
And it gives student populations, it gives the current funding, how much they really need for funding out there. But when you look through this, Oberlin, Kansas, it's a farming town. It's showing there's 29,029 students in the Oberlin schools. I don't think there's that many students in that part of the state.
Well, according to
county.
Google, the city limits of Oberlin have 1,700 people as a population.
Well, there's 29,000 of those 1,700 in the school district.
Well, they probably, they probably had lots of kids that aren't getting counted right now because I don't know why. So out of a population of 1,700 people, 29,000 students are actually going to those school districts. So we need lots and lots of money going towards that district.
Right. And that's where it gets a little weird. Now, same token, take a look up Olathe real quick. I'd like to know the population of Olathe.
Population of Olathe city limits is 135,000 people.
Okay, and for everybody, I'm sure you know, Olathe is up in Johnson County. It's a suburb of Kansas City area.
Yes. We're
showing 302 students in Olathe schools on this study.
302 students, wow.
Yeah, not 30,000, 302. So how much confidence do I have in this report?
Well,
and the list can just go on and on and on. We can talk about different districts all the way through here.
With numbers like that, wouldn't you by that point put up your hand and say this 157-page report goes into the shred bin because it makes no sense whatsoever. And what we paid you to do to come in here and be the expert to study our educational finance system in the state, you probably need to do a little bit more homework and try again. Because right now, you probably graduated from one of our classes that apparently aren't getting the right funding, and you didn't do very well in your math class.
I never took it that far, but I did think of the first part of what you said.
I mean, I don't understand how we can take it seriously when we have numbers like that break it down by the district and say, look, Olathe, a major park, almost a suburb of Kansas City, a huge area in that county. You have 300 students, but then a small community, a farming community. Yeah, you're going to be having close to 29,000 students, and we need more money there. You would think you'd say, wait a second, there's discrepancies here. What are we paying you for?
Right. And that's what a lot of us are questioning on it right now.
Are the progressives, the media right now, they're all giddy. And we've been reading the news stories about this, about how the GOP is finally coming to terms with the fact that we need more money in our educational projects. And the Democrats, when we first started the study, they said, oh, you know what? This isn't right, and this isn't right to bring somebody in to do this study, and we shouldn't be doing this, and it's just going to get whatever the Republicans want to in the end. Now they're all giddy and saying, look, now Republicans, this study came out, you better start coughing up the taxpayer money to be able to fund this. Where do we go from here? Do we look at it? Do we do another study? Do we toss it out? Do we take it to, I mean, what's the next step that's being talked about in the legislature right now?
Well, and I will add, the study is taken on an ideal graduation rate of 95%.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'd love to see 100% out there, but what is a realistic number out there? Is 95% realistic?
Sure.
You know, is 90 realistic? If you go from 95 to 90, it cuts the funding down substantially.
Sure.
So what is a national standard on that? I guarantee you that 95% is not a standard across the country here.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about, by the way, we're talking with State Representative Leo Delperdang, District Number 94, with this study for the educational finance, along with some of the taxes. One tax issue that did come up, and I want to get your thoughts on it, because I know that as soon as this came out, right off the bat, there's been discussion about what to do with some of that revenue that we've touched on, and potentially, doubling your property taxes or sales tax or income tax. The online sales tax issue right now that's saying, oh, you know what, right now we're not getting any revenue from online sales tax. Where is that? Have you heard anything? And do you think would move forward by the end of the session?
I'm thinking that may move forward. There's been talk of it up here. Have not seen it come across our desk yet, but it's definitely getting a lot of talk on it.
Do you know what the rate for something like that would be?
No, I do not. And I'm not sure what the actual revenue generation for something like that would be either. But then you also question, what does that do to Kansas-based businesses who sell from here?
Sure.
Is that going to hurt them on the national and international market?
Oh, probably. I mean, Come on. That's what they want to do. They want to impose their will on the businesses as much as they possibly can. That's their goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where to go.
There is a bill surfacing where you'll probably hear lots of comments about doubling or tripling the property tax. There is a House Bill 2740. And it specifically, I'll just read the first two lines. It's an act concerning property tax relating to school district state aid required ad valorem property tax levy. And what this does is it is truly going to double your property tax mill levies and funnel that into the schools.
Now, we've been pushing for a long time, and I know the Sedgwick County Commissioners have been doing a fantastic job with this, trying to work with the legislature to pass the law saying that if they're going to raise property tax at a statewide level, it needs to be to a vote of the people. It needs to be on a ballot, and we need to be able to vote on it, because property taxes are a very important issue when it comes to people actually owning property, especially if you own lots of farmland or if you own lots of homes or if you own rental homes or whatever. And it's a huge issue. Is there a way that instead of just trying to ram this through before the end of the session, could we put this on a ballot for this fall or something?
I would think it should be on a ballot. Let the people make the decision on that. And there's more to this than just raising the mill levy. If for any of us out here who have received our annual appraisals, property appraisals, I don't know about yours, mine jumped up by almost $17,000. Now, did my house really go up in value that much? No.
Probably not.
But with everything remaining the same at the mill levies, essentially that's a tax increase.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do that. We're going to appraise everybody's houses higher, and we're going to double the mill levies.
Sure. And we just saw that locally here in Sedgwick County as well, that just came down with property values potentially going up, and then the rates going up for the property tax there as well. So that seems like that's been kind of the focal point for the latest, because going into an election year, I have a hard time seeing them want to raise income tax rates again after doing it retroactively in July and then doing it again January 1. I have a hard time seeing that that's what they would want to try and implement again right off the bat for a third time in a row. And then sales tax. I mean, we already have some of the highest sales tax on food in the country being in the state of Kansas. I can't see them touching sales tax unless it's the online sales tax right now either. Property tax, I guess, is really the only place they can go for them to feel comfortable for the lack of somewhat of an uprising from the people saying, wait a second, stop raising my taxes on me.
Yeah, but same token, how do you explain a massive property tax increase to the elderly out there who are still living in their homes? They're on Social Security. You know, I had a forum out in West Wichita a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the topics that was brought up.
Well, come on, Leo. They're the rich and elite who own their own property, and they need to pay their fair share. They really just got to pay their fair share. You know, they're just the rich and elite.
But then there's reality. You know, we're not all rich and elite out here just because we live on the west side of Wichita or the east side, or, you know. Mm-hmm. You've got common folk out here who are just trying to get by and go on with life.
Sure.
And it's time we quit micromanaging them and dipping deeper and deeper into their pockets.
Well, it sounds like that's what we may be doing. We got a couple minutes left here. State Representative Leo Delperdang, I do want to ask you as well with this. We're going to talk with Travis Couture-Lovelady come Monday from the NRA, but last week was also a very big week, and it came to a lot of different initiatives trying to vote on gun confiscation, gun regulation, raising the minimum wage to own a firearm at 21, trying to do the 3-day delay in order for you to purchase a firearm. Where did all that come from? And I'm glad that a lot of it got shot down, but they moved pretty quickly on that one.
They were pretty quick on that one. Some of this started about a month ago or so. We had a bill up here, and it was dealing with the nationwide reciprocity. Mm-hmm. And you probably heard of that, where if I've got a concealed carry license here, it's good just like a driver's license across the nation.
Sure.
We found a couple of issues with it, and that was, I think it was 13, or it may have been more. There were several states who have the ability to have a concealed carry license at the age of 18. So in order for the reciprocity to work, we had to essentially lower hours from 21 to 18. That vote came up.
Sure.
But along with that, then there was all kinds of amendments that came into play with mainly carry on college campuses and trying to get different rules there. They were trying to get it actually removed where you could not carry again on college campuses. One of the questions we asked blatantly on the House floor was, okay, if this is so dangerous with students who are 21 years old currently carrying on college campuses, which I guarantee they were before, how many incidents have happened in Kansas on college campuses since July of last year when it went into effect?
And what was their response to that one?
Can you say deer in the headlight? I mean, there's no answer.
Sure, exactly. They don't see it that way. They say, oh, it's potentially going to happen, so therefore we need to protect ourselves from ourselves.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're right. I mean, it started off as a good idea with the state reciprocity, and then it got too muddled to the point to where it wasn't even worth trying to pass it anymore because there was too much junk in it.
Yeah. So anyway, there were some amendments that made it on. Keep in mind, we've got a very moderate legislature up here this year. Mm-hmm. So there were some amendments that made it on, but it went over to the Senate side. The amendments were stripped out, and I believe the original bill made it on through then. So now we're receiving lots of letters up here that we are, you know, the baby killers because we're going to allow all these people to carry guns that didn't before, but in reality already did.
Yeah, of course. I mean, come on, if we ban the purchase of firearms until the age of 21, then we'll never have a shooting again because only 18-year-olds are actually going to do mass shootings.
Well, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's the way it actually needs to happen. Now, the one I did see that did actually look like it went through was the delaying the purchasing of a firearm if you have a domestic abuse, it's a misdemeanor on your record and with a 5-year period. And I can see that one. I guess that one is a common sense one of, okay, you know, if you have if you have a record of actually violence or wanting to do stupid things, then you probably shouldn't be owning a gun.
And I don't have a problem with that.
Sure.
I really don't. You know, I'm pro Second Amendment all the way, but if you're a convicted felon, or if you've got a conviction there for a domestic issue, yeah, there needs to be a cooling off period. Now, if I've got a domestic issue on me, does that mean I shouldn't be allowed to carry the rest of my life? No, people
Right.
change.
Exactly.
So 5 years, not a bad cooling off period, and take it and move it forward at that point.
Exactly. State Representative Leo Delperdang, we're out of time here, but I honestly don't know where the rest of the session is going to go. I thought that I kind of had an idea of what would happen this session, but with this study that came out with the big push for more educational finance, from now going from $600 million to close to $2 billion over the next few years, and an election year where they're still trying to play nice, I'm honestly, it's kind of a shot in the dark. I don't know what to expect coming out of the last few weeks of the session.
Yeah, and that's a good question. There was some good bills up here that came through, like anti-bullying bills for kids in
Sure.
schools, but right away that got amendments stuck on it to try and turn it into a teacher due process bill. And I'm thinking, okay, is this for the kids or is it for the teachers? So then eventually it was tore apart again, and they ran two bills same day. One was for anti-bullying and one was for the teacher tenure.
Sure.
But that was more of a compromise just to get it off there so we could clean up the anti-bullying bill, which HB 2578, which was a good bill and needed to get passed.
Sure.
But why are we muddling it up?
Well, because that's their agenda. You know what? If they can do the porculus, the omnibus bills, and just be able to stick everything on there that they want to, then if you vote against it, then you're voting against your own agenda. If you vote for it, then you know what? We can all be happy and just get everything we want to.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even the, and I don't want to be negative on the school teachers here, but on the teacher tenure bill, I even have letters in my hand from the Kansas Association of School Boards, and they too were talking how they want it kept at a local basis. There's already teacher tenure, but it's on a local school board basis.
Sure.
And they did not want it tied up into state laws for regulation.
Sure.
But that's not the way it came through. So it got voted through by the massive amount of school teachers who are actually up here and carrying those kind of bills for themselves.
Unbelievable. State Representative Leo Delperdang, we're out of time, my friend, but keep up the good fight. I know a lot of things are going to happen very quickly now that we're towards the end, because we've wasted the first 3 months of the year to where we not quite sure what's going to happen this time. But keep up the good fight, my friend. You have a lot of support back here on the home front, and let's try and get through this one without too many drastic tax hikes or spending changes, shall we?
We shall try that.
That's what we're going to try. Leo, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll get you back on the show again here real soon. Got to take a break. 26 minutes past the hour. It's open lines to you for the rest of the show right here on The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
Bottom of the hour news coming up here. Went a little long in that interview, but that's all right. Appreciate State Representative Leo Delperdang joining the program as we get our update from Topeka. And can you imagine listening to a study that tells us that we need to spend $2 billion more in additional funding for education when they can't even get the districts right? None of the numbers are correct when it goes district by district, and yet we're supposed to believe it and take it as this is what we have to do. We'll talk about that when we come back. Along with your phone calls, it's open lines to you for the rest of the show. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Don't think aloud. Turn your head now, baby, just let me.
It's time for Reason.
We just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
$600 million is nothing compared to the latest study, as we just heard with the report that was revealed on Friday of last week, saying that we need close to $2 billion more over the next 4 to 5 years. Where we're going to get that revenue, that's going to be interesting to find out. So the question I have for you for the last half hour of the show, what taxes do you want to see go up? Maybe your income tax, your property tax, your sales tax, your online sales tax, maybe your gas tax, maybe your cigarette tax, maybe your soda tax. Or all of the above. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I do want to talk about that, but just a second, we do need to talk about the latest news that just came out. Breaking news of the morning is multiple injuries reported in the shooting at St. Mary's High School in Maryland. Another shooting, another school shooting. No details on the shooting yet. Multiple people injured. No reports as of yet of any deaths. They are telling parents to go to a separate, close nearby high school in order to try and get their kids after it's all done. The school is still on lockdown as of right now. The law enforcement has said that the target has been neutralized and it's been taken care of, so there is no active shooter there as of right now, but they are still on lockdown as they do a sweep of the entire building and before they release any more details. So our thoughts and prayers go out to them right now. A sad ordeal as we're starting to see now a shooting in Maryland with the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department reporting on that shooting. I wonder if we would only ban guns and then the shooting would go away, right? If we only would ban guns. You know what? Unfortunately, this is going to happen more frequently because now there is a movement. And don't tell me, I'm not going to wear my maybe let's put on the tinfoil hat here for a second. As we see a massive outcry from students, a massive outcry from community saying that we need to ban AR-15s, we need to ban guns, then you know that what's going to come out. I guarantee you, here's what the story is going to sound like when it comes out. There was an AR-15 involved, and it was a young student that actually did it. Which means we need to raise the minimum age for individuals being able to purchase a firearm, and we need to ban the AR-15. You know that's going to happen. You know that's going to be the story. We've already written it because that's exactly what is going to be reported by the end of the day. And we're going to continue to see more and more and more of those, whether they're, I'm not saying they're staged, but there's going to be people that say, hey, you know what, let's advance an agenda here. Let's promote an agenda. Let's bend the reporting just a little bit to be able to express that. And it's going to continue to happen until we finally ban the AR-15. We raise the minimum age of 21. We increase the waiting period for 3 days for the purchase of firearm. You know it's going to happen. I'm not saying the legislation is going to happen. I'm saying that the shootings are going to continue to happen, and that's going to be the agenda of the media until it does happen. Our thoughts and prayers go out to them. It's upsetting that we first off have to see this, that we're not focused on the right issues, the right attention to the right things, that we're not taking care of the issues that we need to. On average, over the last 10, 20, 15 years, whatever, average of 15 to 20 students, young adults under the age of 18 have died by the hands of a gun. 100 times more of that, 1% to 2% of the teenage population have died by suicide, largely caused by online and social bullying. What's the priority of what we need to address here? How many individuals actually get their hands on an AR-15 and actually want to do harm? Show of hands right now. How many people actually own an AR-15 or a large firearm, a semi-automatic rifle, in their home right now? Whether you're in town, whether you're out in the country, whether you're on a farm, no matter where you are, how many actually own a firearm, a semi-automatic rifle? How many of you use that for a mass shooting? But yet you're going to hear another outcry today. You're going to hear the tweets of all the politicians federally and locally saying we need to start paying attention to school safety. And the only direction and the only conversation we need to have with school safety needs to be the banning of the guns. 316-721-8255. It's open lines to you. Let's go right to them, shall we? Line number one. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Andy.
Good
show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's always great to hear from Representative Delperdang.
Oh, he's a great guy. He does a great job up there.
Yeah. What amazes me is that we changed the figures, okay, from less than $1 billion to over $2 billion, and magically the graduation rate changes.
All we got to do is spend the more money, dump the money in there, not try and actually oversee where the school district's going to spend it, but just give them the money, and all of a sudden we'll see 110% graduation rate with people all on the honors program.
And yet you don't see the outcomes down there. They don't talk about are they going to graduate kids that are more educated?
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about that. It's just graduation rates.
Exactly. Who cares how they're graduating as long as they actually get that diploma and then they can do whatever they want to? Who cares if they're actually college prepped or college ready?
Yeah, that's why I want to see a forensic audit of the school systems.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to go down and put somebody in the school systems to evaluate what's not happening in those classrooms that's those kids are not getting the education they say, or the Supreme Court says 25% of them aren't getting, and probably the other percentage that aren't getting.
Sure. Well, that's what this was supposed to be. This study was supposed to be from someone who had been involved in educational finance for states for many, many years, that worked at one of the universities down in Texas. They paid her to come up and do really an audit, to do a study, to understand where the money's going, to understand and break down the finance formula right now, to see what districts actually need money and where they're at, what's going on. This was supposed to be really an audit of the educational finance system, to come back and say, all right, this is the district that may need some help. This one's doing well. This is what the formula looks like. This is how we're doing it. This is the formulas that have been working in the past for other areas. This is our recommendation for it. And they came back and completely slaughtered it. She had no idea what she was doing. She has a population apparently of 29,000 people in Oberlin, Kansas, which has a population of 1,700 people by itself. Whereas they say that there's 300 students in all of Olathe. Like, they don't know what they're doing. And yet they came back to say, this is the expert to tell us what we need to do with our finances. And oh, by the way, you need to cough up $200 billion or $2 billion more in educational finance.
Yeah, it's like, that plus this how do we keep our kids safe from all these shootings? Okay, well, Brenda Landwehr's right when she's talking about they're talking about giving $5 million to help them upgrade the school systems for safety.
Sure,
but yet they want more than that. And she said, well, you need to pay for it. Well, my question is, folks out there, how precious are your children? What are you willing to pay down at your level to make sure that your children are safe?
What are you willing to do? I actually had a listener about a week or so ago email me a couple weeks ago and offer his services, being a former military individual, offer his services for free as of right now for a local school district down in Oklahoma to go and be a security guard with or without a firearm, if the school board allowed it, to just be at the front doors and just oversee things to help try and prevent something like that. Maybe that's what we need. After the high school shooting I had, parents volunteered to just register people to check in at the front doors rather than being left wide open for anybody to be able to walk into. And maybe we need to start paying attention to the community on what we can do, as opposed to trying to freak out about the government, both statewide and at the federal level, saying that you need to act and you need to do something right now. Maybe we could do something at the local level on the community basis that's probably a little more efficient.
Well, right now I'm for not giving them any more money. And the legislatures need to tell the Supreme Court of Kansas go pound sand.
Well, there it is. Last question before I let you go, Ron. I asked the question, it sounds like we may be seeing some tax rates go up. What would you prefer to see go up? Income tax, property tax, sales tax, online sales tax? What, if you had to see one go up, which one do you want to see? Because I know that you really feel like you need to contribute to the government's spending habits.
Well, I'm not. I don't want them.
See?
There's efficiencies out there that they can get, like administrative realignment.
Sure, there it is.
There's things out there that they haven't even really looked at good.
Well, that's what they need to be doing. They're not going to. Ron, I appreciate it very much, my friend. 316-721-8255. No, some great points. We got a ways to go. We can solve things at the local level. We don't need the government to do it for us. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy, it's Pam.
Good morning, Pam. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good. Ron kind of stole my thunder because we think the same way. But all I want to hear about is let's cut some spending. I am sick to death of hearing how much more can we pick out of your pocket. Our pockets are empty, Kansas.
No, you're right. Our pockets are empty. We're starting to do well. Why the economy ticking up a little bit. We're seeing people rise out of poverty. Do you really want to kill off that incentive of people actually doing well, incentivized to grow their business, start a business, work for a business, upgrade in the business, get some salary increases, do some wage increases? We're going to kill all that off by saying, your children are more important for us to sink a whole bunch of money into the administration side. Let's increase our spending, so we need to raise your taxes. What flavor of tax increases would you like to see?
Well, and especially if they're coming to me and saying, well, homeowner, because you took your money and bought a home in our fine state, we're going to double, triple, whatever we want to do to your property taxes. So you're the only ones hit.
Sure.
Go come on. And then you're telling me we don't even have a clue how many students are in each school? It sounds like voter rolls, Andy.
Exactly. That's a great point. I mean, if we're going to have a study, an audit that actually says this is exactly how much money you need, I mean, this is a big deal. When we're talking about $2 billion or a 20-30% increase on what we're already doing for education spending, and they say you need $2 billion over the next few years figured out, and you have numbers like saying in a populated town of 1,700 people, there's 29,000 students, you probably don't have your numbers right, and you probably need to reevaluate what numbers of spending that we actually need to have.
And they just jump on this like, this is gospel.
Oh, exactly.
And I can't even, thankfully, we have representatives like you had on up there, but I don't think we have enough to save us.
The mind is blown. I tell you, Pam, I appreciate it. You're right. I mean, the mind's blown when they start using that as gospel, when they criticized it at first, and then we come back and we see major flaws, blatant flaws that are in the formula and in the districts, and they say, yep, that's about right. Let's go ahead and start spending. You know that they're jumping and all giddy inside.
We did it! We did it! We did it! Yay!
I mean, that's what they're thinking on the inside right now. We are making this happen, baby. Let's see the tax money roll in. It's dollar bills, my friends. Let's go back to the phones. Line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello?
Hello. How we doing?
Pretty good. My name is Jake.
Hey, good morning, Jake. How are you?
Pretty good. I have a question about the new gun control measures that are being trying to be pushed right now. My question is, if all the gang members and criminals that are already felons that own guns, are they going to turn their guns in if they try to push new gun control measures against the people that are trying to follow the law?
Of course they are. They would turn them in because Dianne Feinstein said so, that if we turn all of our guns in, the bad guys will lay their guns down too, because they'll realize they won't need them any longer. They will be the new law-abiding citizens that will go to church every day and go see mom and pa every evening with the nice little dinner, and they will turn in their guns and never do a bad thing ever again in their life.
All right. Well, I just wanted to address the people that are already not following the laws, that own guns, that are felons. I don't know what new gun laws are going to change right now.
Well, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? I mean, they talk about wanting to increase the spending or the purchasing of the firearm to the age of 21 or the delaying of 3 days. Look, I mean, the people that are doing the bad things, do you really think that a 3-day delay on purchasing a firearm is really going to stop them from wanting to do a bad shooting if they choose to do so?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the difference in if I can go to the ghetto and buy one for $50?
Yeah, exactly. And again, if shooting someone is illegal already by committing murder, and especially doing a mass shooting, if that's already illegal, I don't know if that's going to change if someone's already choosing to want to do so and break the law anyways. I mean, look at it. Bombs are illegal right now, and how many bombs have been gone off in Texas over the last month right now?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, laws are basically designed to control stupid people who can't otherwise handle themselves accordingly.
That's a great point. I appreciate that very much. Great phone call. You're absolutely right. The laws are there, and us, law-abiding citizens, follow the laws, and every time they pass a new law, it's more difficult for us to live on a daily basis. I still have the question out there, what can you do on a daily basis that is not regulated by the government in any way, shape, or form? Can't happen, doesn't happen, you can't do it. We are the law-abiding citizens. We follow the law. They pass more laws that makes us more difficult, while the people that are doing bad things anyways continue to do bad things regardless of the law, because, I don't know, it's a shocker for some. Breaking news here. Breaking news of the day. Bad guys already don't follow the law. It's a wild concept, I know. Let's try and wrap that one around our brains here for a second.
This is the voice of reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
I'm sure you'll get updates all day long when it comes to the shooting in Maryland at the high school and the incident that happened. What's some of the details that's going to come out? What kind of firearm he used? What happened? I'm sure you'll get that throughout the day today. However, there is an interesting update that happened already, as not only the St. Mary's Sheriff's Office is there, the local law enforcement, but also the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms showing up to investigate, quote-unquote, the incident. Not quite sure why the ATF, a governmental bureaucratic agency that really has nothing to do with law enforcement or containing issues like this in any way, shape, or form, is actually at a shooting incident investigating. Not sure if maybe there's a bomb that was involved in that. I'm not sure if it was just because they want to look like they're doing something and it was close to Washington, D.C. by the headquarters, and they can have a presence. That way we can come back and say, well, we got there, we went there, and we're going to start looking at what we can do to prevent this from happening in the future. I don't know what the purpose is, but the ATF is at the scene as well. Here's according to the latest tweet from the ATF headquarters. Breaking: special agents from ATF Baltimore, Hyattsville, and Field 1 and 2 officers are en route to shooting, reported at Great Mills High School in St. Mary's County, Maryland. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan tweeted as well, saying they're closely monitoring the situation at the Great Mills High School. Now, as far as we're aware, it's contained. They are still on lockdown, but the situation is contained and done. Right now, they're telling parents to go to the local high school nearby for the reuniting of their children afterwards. Multiple injuries as of right now. We are not hearing about any deaths, but why the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency is there, I don't know. I've never heard of the ATF going to any other school shooting. So maybe it's just the proximity, the closeness to it, or maybe there's something even more so that's happening that we're not aware of. Either way, it's a scary ordeal. More information will be coming about that throughout the day. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Look, this is going to be the political talking point all day long, and for the next week again, all you're going to hear about are the activists. There's going to be another walkout at schools. There's going to be another protest. There's going to be another uprising. Everybody on social media is going to be all up in arms and say, all right, all you gun-toting, gun-loving jerks, yada, 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 when are you going to finally admit, look, another one that happened just so soon right after the Florida shooting, when are you going to start acknowledging that we need to start taking away guns? It's common sense to take away that gun when it comes to the Second Amendment, when it comes to the AR-15. Because remember, they're not protected by the Second Amendment, right? You know that's what you're going to hear. Brace yourselves for the next few days and for the next week, because it's coming, it's brewing. The storm is about to hit us all over again. We got about 45 seconds, but let's go ahead and wrap up with a phone call here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Oh, Mary?
Yep. Good morning, Mary. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I just had to make a comment.
Go for it.
Bryan Frye, you had on, he said that we needed to get more people to come to the state.
Yes.
So that's fine with doubling property tax and the anti-American ACLU suing Chris Kobach because he wants only citizens to vote.
Yeah.
And the Eagle promoting this every day.
Of
so,
course.
yeah, we're going to get more people.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get lots more people to come in and say, you know what, I love the fact that you're just going to raise or double or triple your property taxes. You're going to let illegals vote and outnumber you when it comes to voting. Yeah, you know what, let's move to Kansas because that's going to be a great state to live in. Mary, I appreciate it. You're absolutely right. The decisions that we make to grow this state have an effect on who actually wants to come and live and reside in the state of Kansas. It's a weird concept, but that's actually the reality of it. As usual, this is your show. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a great Tuesday.